Hi, folks. It's Mark Merrill with Firm, Fairness and Reporting Media Fact Files. This time, folks, we believe at Firm, Democrats are going to lose while America wins. The first of our many topics that we're going to try and cover in this abbreviated program and podcast here on Firm is talk about, unfortunately, who's in the Blaine House right now, Janet Mills, and one of her cronies, Maine's Attorney General Aaron Fry. One of the first things we're going to get to, though, folks, is the recent news that's been happening, and it's not good. We're not going to dwell on it because we don't do that here at Firm. We respect those who have been involved in horrific attacks, especially the Jewish people, not only here in our own country, but on the other side of the world, in Australia. Our condolences and our sympathies go out to all our Jewish neighbors and friends who may have lost loved ones in these attacks, these horrible attacks. Anti-Semitism has got to stop. As we start the program, folks, we're going to start with a particular article from Glenn Beck's Blaze Media, talking about unions having a hissy fit about being not so much dissolved, but at least losing their ability to have a say. Because under Donald Trump's executive orders, we're reading on Blaze Media here, which came out back on December 10th, 13 Republicans threw Trump under the bus and voted with Democrats to defy his executive order. More than a dozen on the GOP side voted with the DEMS on December 10th to advance a bill overturning the executive order against federal worker unions. And guess who? The bill was led by Representative Jared Golden, our own Mainer, who says he's not going to be seeking another term. But the bill was passed in the U.S. House with support of 222 members, and 200 voted against the bill. All Democrats voted in favor, which needs, though, folks, here's some good news. The bill needs another procedural vote to be implemented into law. And Trump still has the final say as whether to sign it or to veto it. The Protect America's Workforce Act would repeal the executive order signed in March of this year. It would forbid collective bargaining with unions representing a large number of federal departments. And Golden said the order stripped about 1 million workers of the bargaining rights. Well, he's a little off on that. Mr. Golden went on to say Trump is ending collective bargaining. About protecting our national defense, he says. Bullcrap. If the majority we built over the past few months sticks together, says Golden, we can overturn this union-busting executive order, and we can show America that this body will protect workers' rights. Oh, really? Yeah. Doubt it. Jacktwad. The 13 Republican representatives, see if you recognize any of them, folks. Most of them are up in the Northeast here. Mr. Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, Nicole Maliotakis of New York, Nick LaLota of New York, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Rob Bresnahan of Pennsylvania, Don Bacon of Nebraska over in the Midwest, Mike Lawler of New York, Tom Keene of New Jersey, Ryan McKenzie of Pennsylvania, Zach Nunn of Iowa, Chris Smith of New Jersey, Pete Stauber of Minnesota, and Mike Turner of Ohio. But if approved, again, by the House, it has to go to the Senate, folks, and we'll need approval from President Trump. Now, when he signed the executive order back in March, the AFL-CIO union vowed to aggressively oppose it to begin with. According to America's union group leaders, their statement read, the president's order is political retribution against unions, plain and simple. Oh, yeah? America's unions have been the streets, courtroom, and the halls of power fighting back against his agenda. Really? Here's some pushback here, folks, on the comments. One person wrote, dumbest bill ever. Why in the heck do we need unions in 2025? There are a million laws that protect workers' rights. Unions are only there to get fat off of union dues and to bring corporations to ruin. Workers are better off without unions, but heaven forbid Congress gets a clue. Another young lady wrote, a lot of union bosses don't get caught, but this was a big scandal. Late 2008, early 2009, the LA Times and other outlets began running investigative stories about the SEIU Local 6434, latter part of the larger California scandal, and especially SEIU United Healthcare Workers West under Sal Rosselli, and the National SEIU under Andy Stern. The biggest bombshell came in January of 2009 when the LA Times exposed that Tyrone Freeman, president of the Local 6434, one of the largest in California, had funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars to his wife's video production company. Expensive restaurants and cigars, ladies and gentlemen. A Four Seasons restaurant, a resort wedding for his daughter. Payments to private golf courses. High-end hotels, lavish conferences, and the list goes on and on. Payments to board members' family businesses. But then, in 2011, concludes this one post, folks, just from this one post. Another major wave hit when Andy Stern's successor, Mary Kay Henry, and the National SEIU were criticized for continuing similar spending patterns, including $300,000 on a gala at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. It was partly funded by dues. All you people who have paid dues to the SEIU back in 2011, Obama was president back then. But that's when the phrase, quote, union bosses living like kings on workers' dues really took off in media and political discourse. Needless to say, folks, we certainly do hope that this one will take a hike and go the way of the dinosaurs. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, as we said, it gets worse before it gets better. Our title on this firm Fact File podcast is Democrats Lose and America Starts to Win. Just a little bit further down on our camera here so you can see the point that Janet Mills is trying to make here, but she's been totally ignoring Maine citizens and voters for the next upcoming year, which is her last, thank the Lord, as she contends for Susan Collins' seat against her opponent here in the Democratic primaries, Graham Plattner. But she recently spoke to Somali immigrants in the past 7 to 10 days. What was that all about? Here comes the news, folks. She also, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to the primary information announcements that she made before an audience of Somali citizens in the state, not Maine citizens, introducing her Office of New Americans. The most recent news came down on December 18th, folks, where Ms. Mills announced that she was appointing Tarlan Amadoff, a seasoned workforce development leader and former state refugee coordinator, as the first director of the Maine Office of New Americans. Right. Sure. The office, approved by the legislature, is charged with making Maine a home of opportunity for all. Notice how it's worded quite well, folks. Yeah, all. Strengthening Maine's workforce, here it comes. Hope you're sitting down. by strengthening the workforce by enhancing the vibrancy of Maine's communities and building a strong economy with unemployment at record lows, that's wrong, and economic growth among the best in the nation, Maine faces a shortage of workers across regions, professions, and skill levels, especially in critical sectors such as healthcare, education, and construction. Improving how Maine connects new Americans to employers is among several key strategies to addressing the state's workforce needs. That doesn't say a doggone thing to me, and it shouldn't to you, ladies and gentlemen, about unemployed workers in Maine, or any demographics about between like 22-year-olds to 30-year-olds who are graduating from college. Does it? I don't hear it in there. Before we get to the next one, folks, here's the additional information from Ms. Mills in regard to the Somalis. Yeah, you see it right there. That's a big number, isn't it? $385,000. What's that for? Oh, well, here we go, folks. The Maine Wire picked up on this on December 11th, at the time that this announcement by Ms. Mills to the Somalis was taking place. A $385,000 no-bid contract. You've heard of that before on the Maine Wire quite often from Steve Robinson and company. No bid. That means Republicans were not involved, the public was not involved, and there were no hearings or work sessions. The no-bid contract to the United Somali Women of Maine for Immigrant Support Services. That's where the $385,000 is going. Not to help people in the Maine, in the Maine population. Special rights. What Janet Mills is pushing this for. Over 1,000 people commented on this post by the Maine Wire. Who among us, says one man, that believe that they are going to find significant fraud associated with the Somali community here in Maine, similar to Minnesota? Question mark. Janet's going to write a book when she leaves office entitled How to Bilk the State and Get Away with It. There it is, folks. Look at it closely and look it up. You can probably find it on the Maine Wire's website. It's horrific. Garbage, Mills. And for the longest time, folks, yours truly has been perusing the highways and byways of central Maine, mostly, and found our protesters over here in the Waterville area. So, what do we have here? Yeah, they've been protesting everything from Donald Trump to his cabinet members. Pete Hegseth, Department of War, you know, about the boats being blown up there as they're trying to dump fentanyl on our shores from a Venezuela dictator. Kristi Noem, of course, and Tom Homan at the Department of Homeland Security and the ICE organization. They're racists, according to the Democrats and the protesters here. Yeah. See what we got right here? This is hypocrisy, as we call it, folks. And we'll show you in a minute what we mean. This woman, you can't see it because the sign is written too lightly. But she's written, "Love is the answer," as she decrees on one of our Waterville streets a few months ago when it was warmer weather. However, here it comes. you see, here's the hypocrisy in motion, folks. Now, it's kind of a smaller picture. We understand that. So we're going to point some things out to you right here. All of these people's signs. I don't know if you can see it or not, but they are all in pink or highlighted. Go right across here, and then we're going to read this one last. The front one, the front 5 or 6 of them, starting from this side right here, starts off by saying, or they're posting and protesting, we should say, hands off our universities. Oh, we got to leave our children alone. Give me a break. You're the ones who support you old hippies from the 60s and 70s, probably grandparents. Most of them are in these bunches that show up in Waterville, Benton, and Fairfield on a regular basis, folks. And we're going to get to the organization that they are supported by. Yeah, they're not doing this for nothing. Yeah, they're getting paid off, all right. But as far as the universities and colleges, CRT, DEI, anti-Semitic studies. Won't say what colleges or universities around here are doing it, folks, but they're doing it. Still doing it. Maybe Donald Trump needs to find out about this, and so does the Anti-Defamation League. You familiar with them? If not, you should be. And what hypocrites the Maine Human Rights Council is, not just against Title IX. Okay? They're the biggest racists we have in this state, folks. And they are ugly, evil. We're not backing down firm here, folks. Pointing out how the Democrats lose for a change and America starts to win. Next up, as we go right across the board here, folks, the next one says Trump and his goons are Nazis. Impeach, imprison Trump, immoral, imbecilic, imposter. Can't we stop? We can stop this, says another one. And another one on the far end says, you lost before with the Civil War. You lost with the Nazis. Now it's your turn. And they're trying to point a sign to Trump. But isn't it hypocrisy in motion here, folks, like we say? It is hypocrisy in motion. Why? Because the sign in the back, the only one that's in white over here, says, kindness heals all. Bull. Bull. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to our friend here, one of our Republican friends, many ones that are voting, or I should say running, for governor of the state in 2026, Bobby Charles. You may not see it, but it's outlined here, folks. Back on December 13th, as Mr. Charles wrote, Plattner, Pingree, Shaw, and Bellows all together on the 13th smiled for the cameras, the video cameras, in Lewiston, and calling President Trump racist for his comments about Somalia and Somalians. Yet they're nowhere to be found with our law enforcement, veterans, and Mainers priced out of this state. How's that going over? Well, not too well, folks. Here's some rest of the comments that came up about this, but first we're going to read some more from Mr. Charles. He's running for governor, he says, to help the average Mainer who's been forgotten, castigated by the extreme left. It's a corrupt cabal focused on pleasing only a few rich coastal elites, the trans lobby, and the media. When I'm governor, says Mr. Charles, we will cut crime, cut taxes, and end the woke nonsense. Amin writes, if you're seeking to lead a community of more than 1.2 million people, it's important to focus on unity and constructive dialogue. Leadership should reflect dignity, knowledge, and respect for all, rather than using divisive language. Roger wrote, You have to win over Portland and Lewiston to have a chance. You have the North locked up. I appreciate your efforts, but there is no chance you're getting the vote from them. This state's too far gone. I'm hoping I'm wrong. You have my support, but I'm a realist. Thank you so much, Bobby Charles, writes another, for telling it like it is and exposing the total corruption of our state. Bethany writes, I know a lot of conservative Republicans in Lewiston-Auburn area who have thrown in the towel on voting because they feel the polls are so corrupt that there's no point in wasting their time. Is there a way to clean it up and convince them to come back and vote for you? That their votes will make a difference and matter? And some go on to just keep supporting Mr. Charles. There's 7 other candidates, though, for the nomination for GOP for governor in 2026. Please keep them in mind, folks. Next up, we can't emphasize this enough, ladies and gentlemen. We were just talking about the anti-Semitism and the attacks over the past several days. You're well aware of it in the news. It's awful while there's loss of life. Attackers must be convicted and sent to jail. Perhaps there should be a prayer for the wicked, a removal of them. We ask, Father God, in the name of Jesus, that all willful workers of wickedness be removed from positions of power, prominence, and prestige. Open the eyes of those being deceived, and place people who stand for your righteous cause in the high places of government and influence. As always, folks, if you, Maine citizens, and others around the country have had enough of the tax and spend and spend and spend and spend mental minions of the Democrats, or deflectocrats as we call them, they deserve harsher treatment than that, if you don't mind. Ignorance of our own electoral college is what they do, and threats against our United States federal laws, Title IX and ICE. Vote for real changes here in Maine, folks, and around the country for Republican leadership in 2026. And lastly, I'm going to go with an excerpt from the Declaration of Independence, one of the pamphlets that we urge you to get from Hillsdale College, as you can see here. The second paragraph, as we always talk about, it's time for a refresher, folks. The second paragraph starts as all truths being self-evident that all men are created equal, and women, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind was more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when the long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, the people, it is their duty, the people, to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. As always, folks, we are firm. Fairness in Reporting Media. I'm always your host, Mark A. Merrill. Please contact us anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. Podcasts are always on YouTube and X, formerly Twitter. Stay safe during the holiday season, folks. Peace to all.